How can sport help individuals to overcome adversity and to achieve great things? Well, today on the podcast, we are joined by somebody quite different, and his name is Lovemore Ndou, and he is a former world champion boxer and also the author of a new book called Tough Love. Not only is he a boxer, but he is also a very accomplished lawyer, and he is now based in Sydney, Australia. Lovemore Ndou, welcome to Solutions with David Ansara.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
So Lovemore, I just finished your book this morning, and it made me think about the power of sport and how it can really fundamentally transform one's life. And I thought I would have you on the podcast just to talk about your life story, your career as a boxer, and also your post-boxing career, and also some of your reflections on your home, South Africa. And I wanted to start off just by going back to your childhood in Messina, in what is today Musina, in northern Limpopo, near the border of Zimbabwe. What was your experience like growing up in the late apartheid period in 1980s Messina?
Well, the first thing that comes into mind is poverty. You know, I come from a very, very poor family. And when I say poor, I mean to an extent that, you know, sometimes days will go by without a meal or, you know, just one meal a day. You know, I had to learn to swim, you know, to catch fish so I can help, you know, assist the family. You know, I didn't start school until I was 9 years of age. And when I started school, I also had to find a job so I could pay for my school fees and, you know, afford to buy my school uniform and school books. So, you know, what I would do is I would finish school and then I would go, you know, clean other people's gardens, you know, or their cars or whatever to make a bit of money. So that's just part of it. But, you know, I grew up, you know, during the apartheid era, you know, where pretty much, you know, a black man's life meant nothing in South Africa. You know, but apart from that, I was also, you know, exposed to a lot of, you know, atrocities. So, you know, I witnessed a lot of atrocities, you know, committed against, you know, family members and friends, which was pretty much like, you know, a daily occurrence, you know, in South Africa. You know, your life meant nothing. You know, your life was just worthless at the time. You know, you could just die over nothing. So that's just part of, you know, what I had to go through, you know, or what I witnessed, you know, growing up in apartheid South Africa.
And Lovemore, at some point in your early childhood, you and your family relocated to Zimbabwe, and there were political problems there as well. And you detail in quite a lot of graphic detail how some of the atrocities that you witnessed there. How did that shape you as a person? And you said in the book that you still carry some of those mental scars. Do you care to share some of those perspectives with us?
Yeah, look, like I said, you know, earlier on, you know, I didn't start school until I was 9 years of age. You know, so because of political problems in South Africa, to start school, we had to cross over to Bay Bridge and start school over there. But at the time we got there, you know, Rhodesia, which eventually became Zimbabwe, you know, was going, you know, through some, you know, what could I say, political changes. You know, Robert Muzorewa's party had just taken over from Ian Smith, but there was a lot of, you know, black on black violence going on at the time, you know, with Robert Mugabe's party and Joshua Nkomo's party and Muzorewa's party. You know, there was a lot of fighting, and Mugabe was using whatever he could, you know, any form of violence he could, you know, to win. You know, and I talk about it in my book. You know, there was an incident that occurred that I had to witness. You know, the local chief, you know, getting murdered. You know, a lot of young people, you know, getting raped. My father was also a victim. He almost died when he got axed. But it was brutal. I had to witness, people getting their lips chopped, chopped off, and their tongues chopped off. So those were things that I had to carry with me for a long time, and I had to experience a lot of nightmares. But again, writing the book in a way pretty much helped me overcome it. Often they say, if you fear something, you should face up to it. So I found writing the book was in a way therapeutic, because I had to relive what the atrocities that I witnessed, and I found eventually, I could deal with it. I can still, even up today, in particular when I see, some, say there's a civil war or something happening in Africa, that just triggers those memories. So, I'm pretty much scarred for life. But that's understandable. Yeah, so those are some of the things that I had to witness. But then when we came back to South Africa, things were not, any different, because then, I think the South African government was pretty much worried, hadn't seen, blacks taking over, Rhodesia from Ian Smith. And the same thing happened in Mozambique. So they were becoming a bit worried, that, blacks might take over. So there was a lot of struggles, a lot of protests going on. And also, within the black communities, there was a lot of violence because, whenever, if they thought you were a traitor, you will pretty much get killed. And, they used to necklace people. I'm sure you know what necklacing is. They used to put a tie on somebody's head and dose it with petrol. So those are things we had to witness growing up in South Africa. So, from one country to another country, it's just violence all over the place.
And your family circumstances weren't ideal either. You describe in the book how your father was attacked, and how those physical impairments haunted him for the rest of his life. And, there were also significant tensions between your parents and also other problems in the broader community. How did that affect you as a child growing up?
Oh, look, in many ways, but this is the thing, I always tell people that, well, whatever things you face in life, whatever hurdles you have to overcome in life, always prepare you for your future. I believe, what I've witnessed in South Africa prepared me, for who I am today. Somebody might say, how? Well, for example, I talk about it, I didn't start school till I was 9 years of age, but look where I am today. So, it made me realize that, that just because you had it tough in the beginning doesn't mean, you can't make your dreams come true, which is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, so that I could pretty much, inspire other people and motivate other people. Just because you had a bad start in life doesn't mean, you still, you can't achieve your dreams. If you dream hard, work hard, stay dedicated, put your heart and soul into it, everything is possible, and you make your dream come true, which is exactly what happened. I didn't start school out till I was 9, but look where I am today. I'm probably one of the most educated athletes that ever lived, and without bragging, I'm probably more educated than most of the world leaders, including South African leaders, and that's not bragging. It's just a fact. But this is somebody who started school at 9 years of age. Again, talking about the setbacks, what I witnessed, the fact that I came from a poor family is pretty much what motivated me to work hard. I think if I had it easy in life, I don't think I'll be where I am today. I had a reason, and even when I ended up taking up boxing, I had a reason to take up boxing, because And I always tell people, if I was born in a country like Australia, where, I had all these opportunities, I don't think I would have been a fighter, because I would have had no reason to fight, But the fact that I come from a very, very poor family, is what motivated me, to work hard, and want to be successful and, achieve everything that I achieved in life.
So Lovemore, your boxing career basically started after you couldn't handle your temper on the soccer field, and you kept knocking out some of your opponents whenever you had an altercation, which I thought was quite amusing. And but also thought it was very interesting how you channeled some of that youthful anger into a discipline that was able to reward you. So tell us more about your early boxing career, because it also got off to a bit of a stuttering start. How was that experience trying to manage some of the difficulties in a country in transition and also building your career as an athlete?
Look, growing up in South Africa, I always knew that, sports was going to be my ticket out of poverty or my ticket out of South Africa. So I tried all kinds of sports. I was good at soccer, but like you already mentioned, I had serious anger issues, and that didn't help. When playing soccer. Look, I had a reason to be angry. I was angry because of the environment that I grew up in. Because of the tensions in South Africa. With apartheid, the poverty, and everything. So I had every reason to be angry. So like I said, it didn't help me when I played soccer, because every time somebody played rough, I'll turn around and knock them out. Then I'll get red carded. So it kept, it's like it kept repeating itself. Each time I had to play, I was often seen chasing another player instead of chasing the ball. People used to place bets to see how long I was going to last in the field. And look, I'm not proud of it. And I'm very, very grateful that along the way I managed to change my attitude. So it so happened that one day we were playing against one of the local schools, and this kid played rough. So I turned around and knocked him out. And they got a security guard to escort me out of the field. And I remember when he was walking me out of the field, he said to me, "Kid, I don't think soccer is for you. You don't last long in the field. Then he said, maybe you should try boxing." So, I thought, well, I had nothing to lose, why not? So I went to the gym the next day. Now, it turned out this guy was a boxing trainer himself and a boxer himself. So he said to me, the first thing when I got there, he said, "Look, the first thing we need to do is work on your anger." Then I thought, no, why? Because I thought this is fighting, this is boxing. You need to be angry to fight, but I was wrong, because when it comes down to it, boxing is scientific. Boxing is like playing a game of chess. You need to have a calm, clear mind. Give you a good example. You try and solve a problem. When you're angry, you end up making more mistakes. But if you calm down, chances are, you're going to resolve it. So I had to learn the hard way. So he put me in sparring against bigger boys, and I was getting beat up. And he kept telling me, "Lama, you gotta calm down. You gotta calm down." And eventually I started listening, and I realized each time I'll calm down, I was performing well. So it changed me, not just as a boxer. So I'm actually very, very grateful, because it changed me to this calm and collected person that I am today. And when I look back, I think had I not changed my attitude, growing up in South Africa, at a time where pretty much every teenager walked around with a gun or a knife, I'll probably be dead today, or locked up in jail, had I not changed my, my attitude. So I'm very, very grateful. But, and that's how my boxing career started, and then I took it up, to the next level from there. And then this is the thing again, I think it's just, with me, the attitude I have is, if I want to do something, I want to do it big. Okay. When I started boxing, I just didn't want to be the local champion. Okay. I wanted to win the world title and, win more world titles if I could. Okay. So that's what happened. And I had a great amateur career. I had about, I was 4 times South African champion as an amateur. and eventually, I turned professional and performed well in South Africa, and eventually moved to Australia, where I took my boxing career further.
And what prompted you to move to Australia, Lovemore?
Look, I was looking for opportunities. This is the thing, and I always tell people, you could have all the talent in the world, but talent on its own is not good enough. You need to have the opportunity. I was sitting there and I knew I was talented, and but I was more of a sparring partner to other fighters, and I wasn't being granted that opportunity that I needed. When you become a boxer, every boxer's dream is to want to win a world title someday. But I was just sitting there, and I knew, if I stayed there, my career was going nowhere. And this is the thing too. If you look at it, I didn't leave South Africa during apartheid. I left South Africa when South Africa became a democratic state. This is the thing. I was also not, I wasn't naive, to think that, well, it's a new South Africa, things were going to be better for blacks right away. I knew it was going to take some time, and I always knew, without bringing the race issue into it, white fighters were getting more opportunities than black fighters at the time. Okay. And I knew, even though South Africa became a democratic state, the promoters were still white, and the people that had money to promote fights were white, and they were always looking for that, great white hope, so, and I always tell people, I think, if you control the economy, you still run the country. So, white people still control the economy in a way, so they pretty much run the country. So I wasn't naive enough to believe things were going to change. But I also didn't have much confidence in the new government, because I always suspected, because based on the history of it, if you look at it, the history of Africa, Africans made great liberators, they made great freedom fighters, but when it comes to running the country, they often run the country down the drain. And you don't have to look far, to see the evidence. Just look at Zimbabwe. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe used to be a very, very rich country. What did Mugabe do? He ran it down the drain. And it's happened in many countries in Africa. So I always had my doubts, and I knew the people that were going to take over the country, people that were going to run the country, great liberators, great freedom fighters, but I didn't have any confidence that they were going to, do well, as the leaders. The only person that ever did a great job was Mandela. But when Mandela came into power, he was already old. So, I knew he wasn't going to stay in office too long. And when I look at it today, I'm great. I'm very grateful that I made that move. Look what's happened now, 27 years later, since we had, you had a new democratic state in South Africa. 27 years later, you still have people living in shacks, you still having people having to rely on the bucket sanitation system. You still have people going to bed in an empty stomach. You still have people living, below the poverty line. So, not much has changed since then, So that's one of the reasons, that's the reason, pretty much the reason why, I moved to Australia. But how it all started, it was, I got an opportunity to fight in Australia. I was offered a fight in Australia. And I actually recall, before I made that move, before I came to Australia, I researched, the country, I looked at its history. I wanted to find out about the history of Australia. So I found out about, Aboriginal people. And then I also found out that, Australia used to have, a Keep Australia wide policy. So I'll be honest with you, I was very, very concerned, when I first, made the trip to Australia. In my mind, I had it that, I was probably going to get treated the same way I was treated in South Africa because of my skin color. But, I was wrong, because when I recall when I first came to Australia, people didn't see a black man, people saw a human being. Okay, so the reception that I received pretty much made me fall in love with the country, and I recall, remember, I came here in 95 just for one fight. So I recall, when we went back to South Africa, and then, I told my family, damn, I told my wife, we're moving to Australia. Okay, and a lot of people thought, I was making a big mistake. And I recall some people telling me, Lovemore, they want to put you in a boat and send you back to South Africa. But, I knew, I knew where I was going because I'd been there already, and I'd already fallen in love with the country. So I would say, the first time I came to the country, I fell in love right away with the country. And then the following year, I moved, 96, I moved back to Australia. I moved to Australia, and I've been here since then.
Okay, and you went on to win the IBF super lightweight title, the IBO welterweight title, as well as the WBF welterweight. So, and I think,
correct.
Yeah, and I mean, those are some incredible achievements. But in many ways, just reflecting on the book, as you were saying earlier as well, you may not have actually had those opportunities to have those big fights if you had stayed in South Africa. And
No, I don't think so. You look at it, you look at South Africa today, South Africa is full of talent, but it's always talent going to waste because, they're never being provided with opportunities, and it's not just in sports, just in everything else in general, African people are talented people. African people are hardworking people, but they are always denied the opportunity, like, for example, again, I'm going to bring the politics into it. You look at, and I always tell people, Africa in general, Africa is not a poor continent. Africa, is a very, very rich continent. Africa is full of national resources. South Africa is not a poor country. South Africa is poor because South Africa has been poorly governed. South Africa is poor because, there is an unequal distribution of national resources. South Africa is poor because of corruption. And I always tell people, the worst thing that ever happened to South Africa, was the introduction of, the Black economic empowerment. Why do I say that? And don't get me wrong, the idea behind it, the intention behind it was great, but what happened at the end is that only those in power benefited from, BEE. Okay, and it allowed them, to taste a lifestyle that they were not used to without having to work for it. Okay, now for them to maintain that lifestyle, what did they have to do? They had to steal from the poor. They had to steal from the public so they can continue to maintain their lifestyle. And that's where corruption started. Okay, that's where self-enrichment started. So the ordinary citizens in South Africa are not benefiting from BEE. So again, and again, going back to what I said before, African people are hardworking people, but they just need to be provided with those opportunities. Again, going back to what I said earlier on, you could have all the talent in the world, but without an opportunity, you're going nowhere. People in South Africa are poor because they're not hardworking people. They are poor because they're not being provided with the opportunities to work. Okay, and for example, we've had stories of so many tenders, that were given to other people, but nobody ever knew where the money went at the end. Corruption is an ongoing thing in South Africa, and unless anyone, offers people, some opportunities in South Africa, nothing is going to change. It's just going to continue the way it is. And what saddens me now, what really, really saddens, makes me angry, is to see what recently happened, with the Zuma thing, when Zuma got arrested because, he decided to defy a court order. And then, what started as a Zuma campaign, as a free Zuma campaign, then turned into looting and chaos, and, and just damaging, and just causing more, problems to the economy. The South African economy is already, in trouble as it is, and the COVID-19 pandemic, just made things worse. But the looting on top of that, just made things worse, for the country. Now, somebody might say, well, South Africans deserve, to suffer after what they've done, but having grown up in South Africa, I can pretty much understand why people, reacted or acted the way they did. It had nothing to do with the Free Zuma campaign. As far as I'm concerned, it all had to do with frustration. People are just frustrated, with the government, that has failed them, for over 27 years now. Okay. People are just frustrated, by leaders, that are treating them like, like they're idiots. People are just frustrated, by a government, that's all those in power are only concerned about self-enrichment. So I can see why people acted the way they did. Don't get me wrong. I don't condone, violence, looting, but I can understand why people, acted the way they did. And the only way to change this, look, it's clear from what's been happening, in South Africa that, the ANC, no longer holds, for the future for South Africa. The ANC is a failed party. Part of the reason is because the ANC is a divided party. It's very, very divided. Like Abraham Lincoln once said, a house divided cannot stand, and that's exactly what's happening now. How can you expect it, a divided party like that, to run a country? And so what does South Africa need to move forward? I always tell people, South Africa needs a new party. South Africa needs a new party, a party that will stand for the people, a party that will provide people, opportunities, a party that will deliver. The ANC is full of promises, but they never deliver. And it saddens me to see, all that work, that Mandela did, going down the drain. And I always tell people, the only reason people are still voting for the ANC today is because the ANC is the only party that allowed people to taste freedom, when they took over from the former racist regime. And the only other reason is because there's no other better party out there to vote for, which is why I say, the people need a new party. They need a new party. If there's a new party that will provide people with opportunities, a new party that will stand for the people, I can tell you right now, the ANC, will be out the door.
And in the book, you made a couple of hints about potentially being interested in a political career yourself and maybe one day coming back to South Africa. I know you are very passionate about justice in your legal practice as well. Any thoughts on future Lovemore return to South Africa and to play a role here?
Look, I am definitely coming back home, and I am definitely going into politics. And I might just be the next, that person that will, introduce a new party in South Africa. And I might just be that person that might bring changes in South Africa. Look, I think South Africa needs educated leaders. The problem you're having at the moment is, you have unqualified people running the country. And that's why you're seeing what's, the country falling apart. So you need educated people that know what they are doing, and yes, I am definitely coming back to South Africa, and I am definitely going to get into politics. And, I would like to see a lot of changes in South Africa. For instance, I would like to see, young people getting educated. There should be a lot of, people should, the government should stop just talking about free education, but not providing. If you talk about free education, then there should be free education. So that's one thing that I would like to, see change in South Africa. And then, and I always tell people, if you educate people, then chances are, people will be able to get jobs. And once people have jobs, you reduce crime. Look at the rate of, crime currently in South Africa. It's so bad. And the worst thing about it is, even those you trust, to protect you are the ones that are, committing crimes. So that needs to change. You look at issues like domestic violence, it's really bad in South Africa. People do it in the open. Okay, and I'm talking about even people in power. They do it in the open. I'm talking about people in the police force. They do it in the open. Look at it, the issue about rape. Children are getting raped every day. That needs to stop. The problem we have in South Africa is, the current leaders you have, they don't really listen to the people. You need someone that would go and talk to the people, listen to the people, listen to their problems, and then work on their problems. So yes, definitely, I am coming back to South Africa, and I might just be that person that might, bring changes in South Africa.
Yeah, and I think your story also demonstrates the transformative power of education as well. And even throughout your boxing career, you were studying towards various degrees. And, I think that education is really critical. And so what has education done for you personally in terms of transforming your own life circumstances?
Well, it's changed me in many ways. Look, and I always tell people, often ask me, what's your biggest achievement? Was it winning world titles? Was it being, getting inducted into the Australian Boxing Hall of Fame? Was it writing your own book? And I always tell people, no, the greatest achievement for me was, educating myself, and this is the thing, with sports, with winning world titles, you could win, 20 world titles or whatever, but you are not going to be a world champion forever. Okay. Someday along the way, a young and more hungrier fighter who's more talented than you is going to beat you. Okay. If that's not the case, one day you're going to get old. You're not going to fight forever. Okay. You're going to become a former world champion. Okay. Boxing gives you status. And if you're lucky, maybe, make a bit of money along the way. That's the only thing that boxing gives you. But with education, you have your 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees. Those are your degrees for life. No one is ever going to take that away from you. Okay. Knowledge is power. Education is power. Somebody once said, the power is in the pen. And I agree with that. No one is ever going to take that education from me. No one is ever going to take the knowledge from me. So, and apart from that, education opens your eyes to the world, and which is why I'm saying, if we educate people in South Africa, they'll be able to see what's going on. They'll be able to see, whether the party they are voting for is doing the right thing for them or not. Okay, and now look. The other thing, I think I need, to put out there is, about African people, we don't expect free handouts. Okay, we don't expect free handouts. We just need to be given opportunities to prove ourselves. And I'm a good example of that. Okay, when South Africa became a democratic state, I had an opportunity to stay back in South Africa, and probably benefit from, BEE, the Black Economic Empowerment. There was a company that used to sponsor me, it was, they used to sell cranes and stuff, they gave me shares, okay? They gave me shares to become, director of the company without even have to work for it, okay? But that wasn't me. I didn't want free handouts.
Hmm.
Okay, I didn't want a free handout, so I said no, thank you. At the end, I decided to go to Australia, to chase some opportunities. And look where I am today. I came to a country that provided me with those opportunities, an opportunity to pursue my boxing career, an opportunity to educate myself. Okay, and look where I am today. So African people, we don't need free handouts. And I'm an example of that. We just need opportunities. And that's what I'm saying about South African people. They just need to be provided with those opportunities, and they'll always excel in life.
Yeah, and I think that equality of opportunity is really important as opposed to equality of outcomes. You can't always expect everybody to reach the same level, but by providing access to opportunities, you give people the chance to better themselves. And, I think that is the fundamental flaw of BEE, is that it's essentially about capital accumulation. It's about political connections. It's not really about productively adding to economic affairs. It's more about extraction. But in South Africa, a lot of people are very reticent to criticize BE because they might come across as racist or anti-transformation. What would you say to those people?
Look, again, like I said, people need to stand up. Okay, you can't just sit back and have that laissez-faire attitude. That laissez-faire attitude is not going to take you anywhere. You can't just sit back and just hope and say things will take their own course and eventually things will change. Because nothing is ever going to change. If people don't stand up, and fight for their rights, and try and have a government, that's going to provide for them. Look, this is the thing too, when it comes to, this issue about, the Black economic empowerment. I was talking to someone not so long ago, and they said to me, look, it seems like, apartheid in a way gave, the end of apartheid in a way liberated, white people. Okay, and the argument being that white people are pretty much working hard. They're still running their businesses. They're working hard. They don't expect free handouts from the government. Okay, whereas Black people are just sitting back and expecting free handouts. Okay, from the government. I agree and I disagree. Okay, that it might have liberated white people. Well, the difference is, and I always argue, the difference is if you look at how the former racist regime, how it treated white people, and why white people are so successful today is because the former racist regime, and I think the ANC can, the current government can learn from that former racist regime. The former racist regime didn't just give free handouts to white people. Okay, it gave them opportunities to excel. Okay, it allowed them to have access to loans, so they can start their own businesses and all that. Okay, but it was only the worst thing about it is it was only to the exception of Black people. It was only white people, okay, that benefited from it. But the current government, it's not assisting people their way. Okay, it's giving people free handouts here and there, and it's not assisting the people to learn, to work hard for themselves. Somebody once said to me, "Oh, the old saying about give a man a fish and he'll eat for one day, but if teach him how to to fish, he'll eat for life, right?" There's I agree and disagree with that as well. Yes, you might teach a man to fish, okay? But if the man doesn't have a fishing rod or a fishing net, he's still going to starve, okay? He might have the fishing experience, but if he doesn't have the equipment to go fishing, how's he gonna make a living, okay? Same thing in South Africa. People might get educated, people might learn some few trades, but if they don't have something to get them started, how are they gonna get started? If the government is not assisting them get loans so they can start their own businesses, how are they gonna start their business? They might just be, they might be qualified to do something, but they don't have the means to get started, which is the difference, with the former racist regime. It gave white people the means to get started. So that's why today they're still, doing well, okay? Whereas, most Blacks are just sitting back and, relying on free handouts, and not because they're not qualified. Most of them are very, very qualified, but they are denied, they're not provided those opportunities. They're not given the means to get started or to start a business.
Lovemore, Ronald Reagan once said that government is not the solution to the problem. Government is the problem. And is it not a fallacy to think that salvation lies with just electing the right government? It's also about people taking individual responsibility in their communities to better themselves. Do you think that politics can provide salvation, or do you think that we in South Africa need something more to help improve our circumstances?
I agree with what you're saying. It's not always about the government, but if we have a situation where you've got what you call a democratic government, you've got all these people that you appointed to represent you, then you ask, you pretty much expect those people to assist the citizens, and you expect those people to comply with the principles of governance, and that hasn't been happening in South Africa, and I think at some stage the ANC has to start showing some accountability and responsiveness, and that hasn't been happening. Public officials should be answerable to government behavior, but that hasn't been happening in South Africa. The leaders you have pretty much think they're above the law. If you look at it, a public office should be viewed as a public trust, and therefore it's there to serve, and it's expected to be accountable to the people. But that hasn't been happening, and it's expected also to display loyalty, responsibility, integrity. That hasn't been happening in South Africa. So up until you've got a government that's willing to comply with the principles of governance, you're not going to have some changes in South Africa. Okay, there needs to be some transparency going on in South Africa, and there needs to be people need those in power needs to uphold the rule of law. That hasn't been happening, and that's why you're having all these problems, because everybody thinks they're just above the law. Okay, so yes, you should take some responsibility on your own, but again, it comes back to you need to get started somewhere to take those responsibilities, which is what I was saying before. You need, and which is where I was comparing the former racist regime to the current government. Bad as it was, but it, the way it was running things, even though it was to the exception of Black people, it was preparing the people for their success in the future. It was preparing people to be responsible. It was preparing people to be independent. And I'm talking about white people. Okay, and that's what the current government needs to be doing. Prepare its citizens to be independent. Give them those opportunities. Give them some loans if they need loans. Help them get loans so they can start their business and all that.
Yeah, and Lovemore, obviously during the apartheid period, there was the color bar as well, and Black people were denied opportunities. It wasn't just that whites were given more advantages. So there was definitely an uneven playing field. And I mean, you also have experienced incidents of racism in your life. But, you know, I think it's also, when we look at the South African government today, they obviously have various ideological intentions around socialist ideas, which they very proudly proclaim in their documents and so on. But they're also guided a lot by African nationalism. And I think the counter to that would be non-racialism and treating people as individuals. And as you mentioned, in Australia, you were treated not as a member of your racial group, but as an individual. And I think it's really important to have that goal in society, to treat people for who they are, not who they supposedly represent.
No, I agree with you. And you're right. That the biggest problem in South Africa is, it's everything is about race. Everything is always turned into a race issue. You got leaders like Malema, who still up to this day, goes around singing "Kill the Boer." Where is that taking us? Okay, well, we need to move forward. We can't keep making things about race. Isn't that the reason why the country became a democratic state? So that we can move forward and work together, irrespective of color. But no, everything in South Africa is still, it's about race. So we need to move forward. We need to move away from that. And the other thing too, it's about, blaming apartheid. Yes, apartheid was wrong, but we need to move away from that. Okay, we need to move forward. And then somebody wants to say to me, South Africa, used to be a problem of South Africa. I mean, apartheid used to be a problem of South Africa, but that's not correct. Apartheid is a problem of the whole world. That's how I see it. Just because it's not written into legislation doesn't mean it doesn't exist. No, apartheid is a problem of the whole world, because as far as, if you taught someone from excelling because of their age, their skin color, their gender, or, their sexual preferences, that's a form of apartheid. If I say I'm not going to work with you because you're white, but you've never done anything wrong by me, that's apartheid. If you say I'm not going to work with that guy because he's gay, but he's never done anything wrong by you, that's a form of apartheid. So it's a problem of the whole world. It's not just a problem of South Africa, but we need to move forward. We need to move away from it, and start working together, and that's the only way we're going to improve South Africa. But if we keep making everything about race and blame it on, on apartheid, we are not going anywhere, Again, like I said earlier on, it's been 27 years now since the country became a democratic state, and nothing has changed. In fact, the economy is getting worse. You've got a lot of problems. You got issues with electricity. You got water. Water shortage. You got a lot of problems. It's like you're going back in to uncivilization. Whereas the country should be moving forward. And always, and people are always pointing the finger back to apartheid. No. Apartheid was wrong, but your current leaders are not doing you any favors.
So Lovemore, just looking around at the political parties, one party in particular, the Economic Freedom Fighters, they seem to be growing in support. They're still only around 10% of the vote, but have a big media profile, and a lot of the media indulges them. What are some of your views on the Economic Freedom Fighters and their leader, Julius Malema?
Look, I always think, and I always say, God forbid if the EFF ever runs the country, because it's going to run it down the drain. It's clear that Malema, he changes like a chameleon. He's always changing colors. He flip-flops. And like I always tell people, he reminds me of a young Robert Mugabe. If that guy ever runs the country, he's going to run it down the drain like Mugabe did. And it's concerning that, like I said, up to this day, he still makes everything about race. And so you can't have someone like that run a country. They're just going to destroy the country.
Lovemore, just as we bring this conversation to a close, this is the Solutions Podcast. So many of the problems are very familiar to us and to everyone listening. But what would be some of your solutions that you would offer as a kind of way to close out this conversation?
Like I said, the first thing is you need a new party. You need a new party, a party that will stand for the people, a party that will provide people with equal opportunities, without looking at race, a party that would, provide people with education, train people for jobs, fight crime, fight domestic violence. That's what people need. It's not gonna be easy while you still got, the problem you have at the moment, you've got pretty much everyone is that's in power today has been accused, of self-enrichment. Okay. And there's some evidence out there to show that, some of these people have been corrupt. So if you got a government run by corrupt leaders, what do you expect? So the solution is to get rid of a government that's failed you. The solution is to create a government that will stand for everybody, irrespective of color. Okay? It's no use having the best constitution like you do in South Africa, but you are not going to, put it into practice. Okay? So you need a party that will stand for the people and provide equal opportunities.
Lovemore Ndou, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining me on the Solutions with David Ansara podcast. And we wish you well with your legal and hopefully your political career as well. And one day we look forward to welcoming you back onto our shores. My name is David Ansara. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. And also if you're listening on your preferred podcast platform, please do subscribe there as well and leave a 5-star review. It helps the show to grow. My name is David Ansara. Until next week, take care.